Tom, the new forecast just coming into the CNN Weather Center. What does it say?
Just moments ago, Wolf, the National Hurricane Center has lifted now the status of the storm to a Category 3, and it's a mid-level Category 3. We're only 10 miles per hour away from a Category 4 status, and we do have that time and space still available. But let's not concentrate on that. This is going to really impact northern Florida, Georgia, through the Carolinas with more force than we had with Florence. Completely different storms. Florence was all about water, the surge and the rainfall. But right now, we've seen twice in the last 24 hours some rapid intensification. Yesterday, 40-mile-per-hour sustained winds, up to 85 last night. Now we're at 120, and we've got gusts up to 150 miles per hour. We're 295 miles south of Panama City. The National Hurricane Center picks and chooses their wording very carefully, Wolf. Yesterday, they talked about life-threatening inundation, and this is going to happen. Also, today, they used the word historic. Again, they pick and choose these words very carefully. Here's why. We have had since 1950 only 3 major hurricanes make landfall in the panhandle of Florida. You've got to go back to 1975. It was Eloise. 20 years later, in 95, it was Opal. 10 years later, 2005, Dennis. But all 3 of those were west of Panama City. So this will be historic, still has its eyes on Panama City and the surge to the east. So this is why this life-threatening situation is going to be upon us, and it still looks like landfall will be sometime mid-afternoon, let's say 3, 5, maybe even 6 p.m. But the warnings lift well into southern parts of Georgia. The tropical storm force warnings, those go into actually South Carolina. But again, the surge from Panama City to Apalachicola could be as high as 9 feet. We've got 8 to 12 feet over toward the Suwannee River. This is the time of year where the tides are the highest. They're called the king tides, and they keep that, of course, in their thinking when they put out these warnings. Here is now the official track has not changed much. We still have Michael moving due north at 12 miles per hour. That Wolf remains the same, and it still looks like our impact area will be pretty much at Panama City. Panama Beach. That includes Destin and the Fort Walton Beach, but really to the east now, where that storm surge on that deadly right end quadrant here on that eastern edge will flood the Big Bend area. Now, around the Apalachicola area, it's a nature coast, which is good news. That can, take a little bit of the brunt of this because there's not much in the way of a population there. But the heavy rains and these winds will stay intact well inland, could knock out power over 1 million people, and it stays pretty strong as we go through the Carolinas. So again, it will lose some strength, but the core of these winds, Wolf, are going to be strong enough to knock out a lot of trees from Panama City to Tallahassee up into southern Georgia, and the streak of that rainfall will continue through the Carolinas, the last place they need it.
It wasn't just a day or so ago. It was a tropical storm, then a Category 1, Category 2. Now it's a Category 3. And as you say, it's totally possible, given the warm waters of the Gulf, it could wind up even a Category 4, although right now that doesn't look to be the case. Did all this creep up on the experts very quickly? Because I'm a little worried that folks didn't have enough advance warning to get out of town.
Well, last Thursday, Wolf, we noticed this cluster of storms in the Yucatan. It had only a 20% chance of developing. So the meteorological world was watching it. But really, when it started to take an organization, then, of course, everybody finds out about it. It's not like an Atlantic storm where we have a week's notice. So preparations have to be done today or even by tomorrow morning. But evacuations are taking place even as we speak.
I hope that people heed those evacuation orders. Our meteorologist, Tom Sater, thank you. We'll get back to you soon. I want to go quickly to our own Brian Todd. He's joining us from Destin, Florida. That's a community that's especially vulnerable right now to this coming monster storm. What are you seeing there now? What do you anticipate, Brian?
Well, Wolf, I just heard you and Tom talking about how fast this storm formed and how fast it's moving. That is really worrisome to people here. I'm standing in between 2 critical pieces of infrastructure right now. This is Noriega Point. It's a massive berm that was built many, many years ago just to protect from hurricanes coming inland and hitting Destin Beach. That's about to be put to the test. Also, you've got over here, this is a key evacuation route. This is the Destin Bridge going west out of Destin. This is Route 98. I've talked to officials here who have said that they have told everybody everybody on the south side of this bridge, of this highway, which means everybody over here in the low-lying areas. They've told everyone there to get out. But right now, Wolf, it's getting to be pretty much too late because the first effects of this storm are just a few hours away.
Tonight, after brushing past Cuba with heavy rains and strong winds, a strengthening Hurricane Michael is now plowing toward Florida. The Panhandle is bracing for impact.
Hurricane Michael is a massive storm that could bring total devastation to parts of our state.
Water along coastal inlets and roadways is already rising. Last-minute preparations, sandbagging doorways, boarding up buildings, clearing the beaches, gassing up cars, and buying up supplies.
We opened at 6. By 6:15, we sold out of every generator we had.
This couple even moved up their wedding by a day, not waiting until tomorrow to tie the knot.
We bumped it up to Tuesday night, sunset, and then we bumped it up to this morning.
More than 20 million people are under a hurricane or tropical storm watch or warning across 5 states. Authorities declaring coastal evacuations, preparing shelters, and asking residents in harm's way to get ready.
You've got to take care of yourself. 3 days of food, 3 days of water, have your medicine, know your evacuation route. Make sure you have fuel in the gas tanks.
On the Mid-Bay Bridge, leaving the Gulf Coast at Destin, outbound traffic is slow but steady. Destin's mayor says his biggest concern is storm surge.
What's the biggest mistake people make?
The biggest mistake is what the police department, the fire department hates the most, is people going out during a storm. They want to be sightseers. That curiosity makes people make bad decisions.
Now, in just a few hours, the winds are going to start to pick up. We're told that as soon as winds get to a sustained strength of 39 miles an hour, this bridge and every other bridge around here is going to close. So if you're going to get out, you've got to get out quickly. For the people who want to stay here, Wolf, authorities here are telling us to get the word out, not to call first responders during the height of the storm because they cannot get to you. Wolf?
All right, Brian, we'll get back to you soon. Brian Todd reporting.